I'm Richard Preece. I used to be a curator in this museum, and I have a great love of the Ice Age. A lot of my research was devoted to that time period. Now, we call it the Ice Age, but it's important to realise that the Ice Age was not uniformly cold. There are a whole series of interglacial periods, warm periods, between the major cold periods. Well, let's start by looking at one of the most iconic animals of the Ice Age, which is, of course, the woolly mammoth. And here I've got a tooth, a molar tooth of a woolly mammoth. This is the grinding surface, and you'll see it's made up of a whole series of lamellar plates, enamel plates, which are used to grind the grass that this mammoth used to eat. So the other fossils I have here are, this comes from Siberia. This is actually the hair from a woolly mammoth. This is why we call it woolly, because we know that it was covered in hair, and that's some real hair from a mammoth which is probably about 40,000 years old or so. And also dung. We know a lot from these different features that normally don't fossilise. This fossilises by virtue of the fact that it occurs out of the permafrost and it just hasn't decayed, as most of these remains do. You only get the hard bits, the teeth and the bones, that normally preserve. But in exceptional cases, cold here and arid here, dry caves, you can actually find the remains of dung. And this is very helpful because we can say a lot about the diet of the mammoth by looking at the remains in the dung. It's largely fibrous plant material, and we've got a lot of seeds and things, so we know exactly the sorts of plants that the woolly mammoth ate. This large specimen I have in the middle, very seasonal because it is actually the remains of a reindeer. Reindeer had a very wide range during the Ice Age. It got all the way down into the south of Europe, into southern France and Spain, so it had a very much bigger range than it has at the present day. This is also the remains of a reindeer, and this is of interest because this little bone, it's of a juvenile deer. It's actually been gnawed by a carnivore. If you look very carefully, there are gnaw marks. So this animal was eaten by, we think, a wolf. And we know that wolf was present at this site because here is a jaw of wolf also found in association with these remains. This is the spotted hyena, and these are jaw fragments with a nice row of very large teeth that came from Barrington, a site in Cambridgeshire. This site is of last interglacial age, which is about 120,000 years ago. So this animal was found during both warm and cold periods, actually, the spotted hyena. But there are some animals which are only found in the warmer interludes, what we call the interglacial periods. And perhaps the most famous of those from this period is the hippopotamus. It's easy to think of this, because it's now exclusively sort of sub-Saharan Africa, that this is a tropical animal. But when it was living over most of Europe, about 125,000 years ago, it was living in clearly what we know from the associated plants and animals. It was living in temperate conditions, much like those that exist today, just marginally warmer perhaps.